Welcome, listeners, to An Industry's Insight, the podcast where we're all about the entertainment world, such as music, publishing, marketing, film, advertising, managing business, and more. I'm your host, Thomas Grabuznik,
And I am Dino Ciccarelli.
and we are broadcasting from the WFTU studios in Dix Hills, New York.
All right, so today we have a special guest in studio today. We have Five Towns professor, audio professor, Professor John Machado. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so why don't you go ahead and just tell us about yourself?
I'm a person who's obviously given up on life. I'm just joking. No, I've been here for a long time. I recognize this past spring semester, it's been 20 years, so I'm in my 21st year here.
Oh, wow.
Yes, that's a long time. Once you calculate the years and you're like, wow, I've really been here for a while. But I've been here only because I love the place. And I know and you guys have had me as a professor in class, so you know my opinion on topics that happen here. But I do love this place, and I do love the audio program. The program itself is really top notch when it comes to equipment that you can use and get your hands on, microphone choices, software choices. Do we have everything? No. It was up to me, we would, but I don't. So when it comes to my feelings on that topic, it's really geared towards what would I want if I was a student. So that's one of the things. You can't get everything that you want, but we get a lot of yeses. Like, we just bought another 6 microphones for the theater department. We bought additional in-ear monitors and IFBs for the mass comm. When we're obviously on the radio station, we gave up our office, so this radio station can exist. This used to be the audio office. And I'm glad that we did that, in a sense of that we were going to have the office across the hallway, if anyone's familiar with the location. Instead, that's now the computer graphics, the ICG thing. So again, all those things are great things for the school. Therefore, I'm glad we were part of it, and I'm glad we bowed out and said, okay, that's cool and whatever, to the changes that are happening here. And I think the changes that are here, the things I'm most proud of, like the things we've changed over the years, and how we have more classes, a lot more freedom for students. The studio time has changed. But I guess your question was really about myself, which obviously I'm avoiding through this entire conversation. It's mostly because I don't really think there's anything much to talk about myself. Like, in the sense of, like, I know the things I've done. I don't think most people care about them, even though there are students who do want to know, like what I've done or what I haven't done. I think that might be important, but I just know from listening to others talk about themselves, sometimes when I've done presentations outside of school, so with people we don't know about, and they have people run down the panel of guest speakers that are there, and I'm one of them. I listen to these people talk, and as they go on and on and on about themselves, I always am like, no one cares. Just get to the point. Your thing has already lasted 4 more minutes than it should have. Just move down the line so that we can get to the important topics, which is usually the discussion itself. So obviously I'm an audio engineer. I've been doing this longer than you guys have been alive. And I've never not wanted to do this. There's never been a time in my life that I can remember that I wasn't into either music or audio recording. I tell this story, and I think it's an interesting story in the sense of, like, I knew at the age of 3 I was going to be doing this. And to know something like that and be so passionate about it, the way I feel about this topic, is, and achieve it, I guess, because I don't do anything else. Like, I really just do audio all day long, all night long, all weekend long, whatever. And to have a job like that, that's pretty priceless. Like, most of my friends, they have jobs that they really can't stand.
Yeah.
They go home from work and they're unhappy with their current work, position or job, or, where they are in their workforce. Even though there are difficulties at any job, same as here, I do love my job. I love my job here. I love my job outside of here. So I guess that's about me.
All right. Now, what made you become? You said that you wanted to do this ever since you were a young child. But what actually drove you to become a audio engineer, and also what made you become an audio professor as well?
Okay, that's an interesting one. The answer to what made me is David Gilmour from Pink Floyd.
Okay.
And I'm not a starstruck person. I've gotten to work with people that I won't name drop, but the day I met David Gilmour was the first time I've ever experienced being starstruck, where I really wanted to sit and talk with him a lot longer than I actually had an opportunity to. But I really wanted to say, it's like, because of you, my life is the way it is. And again, I was a young child when I first knew I wanted to do this, but when I started experimenting with recording at my house with reel-to-reel tapes, because that's what you had back then, and like cassette tapes and splicing stuff together to create unique, multi-track things that I can mess around with. It was Pink Floyd and the Beatles, and I'm a guitar player, and I studied guitar. I'm a master's of music. I play other instruments, but I'm definitely more of a guitar player than anything else. And just listening to him play the first time I heard that, I guess I was about like 7. I was like, I want to do that. I want to do this. I want to be able to record. I want to know why that sounds a certain way, which amp he's using, which guitar he's using. Like, I knew at that age that it wasn't just like picking up any random instrument. You'll get this. You need to understand the technical aspect of what I'm listening to. And I think that for me was a clear indication that my love for this was not just a fad or like a hobby. I wanted to know everything. I don't think even to this day, there's not one thing that I learned that I would say like, okay, that was useless. This was unimportant. Everything is important. Every little step of the way that I came and learned, and every person I ran into, every person who's took me under their wing and said, hey, this kid's into this, let me help him out. By showing him more stuff or taking him to in locations that he'll never get to on his own. Those are the kind of things that I think is why I do what I do and why I love it so much. And I give back to that exact aspect. Though right now I'm currently with I won't say his name, but he's not a student here, but I met him through an open house, and his dad and I spoke for a while, and he's going into a different direction for his business, but that's a hobby. He's pretty much me when I was a kid, like how deeply into it he is. And when I saw that, it turned out we live near each other, so him and I actually get together, and I don't want to call it private lessons, but like I guess that's really what it is. I'm teaching him stuff that people taught me when I was his age, and he's a younger kid, but the point of it is that when I see someone that inspired to do it, it reminds me of myself and all the people that went out of their way to help me, and without them I couldn't have done half the things I've done. Now the professor side of the question is interesting, because if you would have asked me if I would have taught this, it wasn't like I thought like, hey, I should teach this. But my original job and my schooling, I was like, I don't want to say like that I was great. I was top of the class in science. I was top of the class in this. So like I was on the AV squad in my school, and like, I wired systems up at the school I went to. It was a private school. I was already into that, and I was teaching kids there how to run it.
Okay.
So the business that I owned for many years, which most of you probably know is a pet store and has nothing to do with audio, but that's because of my love of animals. I did nothing but teach everyone who worked there the right way to handle things. It was so I've been teaching, I'm pretty sure, since I was about like 9 years old.
Oh, wow.
So not that I would have said, hey, let me become a professor, because if anyone knew my schooling, I guess antics, I guess is a good way to put that, they probably would have voted against me becoming anything that has to do with a thing of authority. But I think that's because of just my personality. It has nothing to do with whether I can teach or not. I've been teaching, since I was a young child. Even all the studios that I worked at, all the new people who came through the door, all the interns, all the guest engineers, I was the one who sat there most of the time teaching them how to use the facility, so I've just been doing this. The fact that I even have the title, I would have been doing this anyway. Like, even if I wasn't here at the college, I would be doing it out of studio with new people who came through the door and that kind of thing.
So to you, what makes a good session?
Give me the style of session. Is it like, what kind of session are we talking about? Is it a music production session? Because like, if you're talking music production, like I could probably break it down to every category. Music production, what makes it good is if the people come through the door and they know what they're supposed to play before they start, and they're not figuring it out as they're playing. Like, I'm working with this one band, and they're super talented. Everyone in the band is super talented. I think the production process so far has been very, very positive, but a lot of it outside of the core of the song is left for, hey, let's mess around with this and see what we come up with, which means the session is just now sometimes, what I think, in my opinion, is not prepared enough, where time is being ticking away and nothing's being done positively. And now they're trying to force something in that's just made up right now. And maybe it doesn't belong there. And I think sometimes the people in those scenarios, they're like, well, I already started this, therefore I got to finish it. It's got to fit there. I think there is a currently being played on Showtime, the cable channel, about the band Leonard Skinner, and their first 3 records. I think that it's 3. They were talking about the production process, that everything that they walked through the door with was so rehearsed that it was just like glorious to record. Those are the sessions that are awesome. Like they come in and they nail it. You know what I mean? You don't, because technically you're recording a moment of time. So is that moment in time filled with mistakes, or is it filled with like such good performances that you're just like, wow, these are just great songs and they're being performed so well. Like every single solo was done almost note for note every single take. And obviously back then they did things differently. They didn't just play it once and then fix everything in there. They played it so it felt right, and that's the one they used. And maybe edited some pieces and then did some overdubs. But they were just in the interview process of the engineer, and I won't name drop, but he talked about that, and those are the sessions that I love. Like when you set everything up and everyone just goes and it's awesome. Now the production sessions, the person knows what they want beforehand. Like, so if they're doing like producing of a beat or something like that, that's already been manufactured or thought about, and then we're just adding things to it instead of it's not that I dislike it. It's just that it's just a long process of like, we're looking for a sound that could take hours just to get the sound to put the part on. Whether it be a snare drum sound or a synth sound, and we're just sitting there going sound after sound after sound. It's like redundant. You know what I mean? You heard the same part with 1,000 different sounds, to the point that I think some people can't even separate that decision-making process to 10 sounds earlier, or 30 sounds earlier, or maybe 200 sounds earlier. So those post-production sessions, I think the best sessions I think the funnest sessions I've always had, except for bands that were funny or artists that were funny, were the post-production sessions, because those sessions, there's a very large amount of creativity, you know what I mean? In a sense of, it's not that you are recording, a piano track, or you're recording a vocal melody or anything like that, but you're coming up with ways to bring something that has no sound to life in a lot of cases. So I think those are very fun. So, and we can keep going. There's obviously a lot more than what I've just mentioned, but like I've been doing restoration lately, and those sessions have been, I think, almost like inspiring again for me, because like I'm getting certified on RX7. Not that anyone needs to know that, but with that process, I've now discovered a new area of audio that I was like, oh, I forgot I can do all this stuff too. And like, hearing that there's so many multi-tracks out there that need restoration and remixing and remastering, like those are going to be so much fun, like, because you're uncovering, history basically, and that's the best way to put it. Things that have been recorded, and you're going to go back through and clean it up and get rid of like the background hum that was in the studio, because that's the way they recorded it, and be able to remove it to the point that it has clarity of today, but still was recorded like 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah. Now, when you're recording and engineering specific bands, do you give like insight as to how you would do it, or do you go exactly like how the artist wants it to sound?
I luckily am at a point in my life that I have a decent amount of clients that I no longer want to work with people that I don't have say in it. Like I just don't do it. Like I'll do it if obviously they're paying the right money, but I'd rather not do that. I'd rather work with someone that, as we're doing something, like, hey, it'd be cool if you tried it this way, or yeah, that's great, do that, but let's add this on top. Like here on the last chorus, why don't we take the same chords but do different inversions and use a different sound, so it kicks it up even harder at the end. Those are the kind of things that make the production process creative as well. We've been talking about creativity, but that's the part that I think is what I love about it. Like taking something that was like 4 chords and then turning into something that's completely different from what the person walked through the door with is the part that I like the best. So I try to find people that are not already set in their ways completely, and are definitely open to experimentation, in the sense of not like, hey, let's just recreate the wheel, but let's, now that we've got this, what can make this even cooler? This is awesome. Like, how do we make it awesomer? Do you know what I mean? And, jokingly saying it that way. There are a few bands that I had where one member of the band was not interested in, I guess, doing that. The two of us would always, butt heads a little bit, and I think that made the creative process weak. Like I was talking about, and I just ran into him recently, and every time I die show, out of all places, turn into this, because the band wasn't really that kind of band, and But he was there, and we would talk, and of course, I made sure we were cordial to each other. But I know deep down inside, he's not a fan of me, and I'm not a fan of him, because every time I would say something to him, he'd be like, "No, that's the way I want it," and that's it. And if you're that closed-minded about it, then you can have got anyone to record you. You don't need me. I think production, even though maybe I'm only getting paid to be an engineer, is part of it.
Yeah. No, and I agree, because it's like it's good for you, because if you're showing that like you want to help create a better product, they're going to always want to come back to you.
Right, and that's
Yeah.
that's the reason why I have enough clients that, and I tell the students here too, like, you do the right thing by them. It's usually like a calendar. Like if they're January, February artists for you, you'll see them in a year. Do the right thing, they'll call you back in a year.
Yeah.
When they're doing their next project, or 6-7 months from now. So they just keep rotating. I'm trying to work less. I worked so much over the last like many years that I'm actually trying to cut that back, and I'd rather just take 2 or 3 really good projects and just work on them exclusively, and not have to juggle as many artists as I do right now. Like it's like right now, I'm getting text right now as we're sitting here for someone who wants to know which my next available day is. They need to know immediately so they can switch their work schedule. But I've got 4 other people doing that also at the same exact time.
Yeah.
So there's not enough time in the day for me to work as much as people want me to work, which is beat, because it's not that I don't want to do it. I do want to do it. It's just I've only got 24 hours in the
Yeah,
day.
you don't
Oh
have
yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's so many artists and there's only one you.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Right. And the thing is, they're always like, unfortunately, people too, is I guess they forget that, and they always go like, "Hey, are you available in like this week?" I'm like, "Nah, I'm booked for like the next 3 weeks." And they're like, "What, really?"
Yeah.
And that's what my life is like right now. I'm booked till pretty much the middle of January.
Oh wow.
With gaps of time that people can take, but it's really just gaps. And I really don't want to work that much. I really want to cut it back a little bit.
Yeah. Because that on top of teaching, it's like starts to run you down a little bit.
No, it's not that. I can handle the time. I can handle the hours. Like nothing. Like when students come to me and say like, "Oh, I've been up. I've only slept 2 hours," and I'm just like, "Yeah, and." But like it's, that's like a normal day for me. I sleep more than I ever have though in the last 50 years, whatever, 60 years. What am I, like 90 now? But the part about that's different. Like I would keep working. Like I did 18 hours yesterday without even blinking an eye. I didn't sit down and go like, "Oh my God, I'm so tired." I didn't even eat through that time. You would think that I'm eating all hours of the day, but I'm not, unfortunately, because then I pack it on at the end. But it's one of those things that I would keep going because I love it. It's like being in a casino for me. I don't even know what time it is. And like, I was working with someone last night on the last session, my last session of the day, and I did 3 of them yesterday. We were in such a great groove. We had such great, creative things happening, and I'm recreating stuff that he's already created that doesn't sound that good. So I'm re-recording guitar parts for him. It's a hip hop track that has like guitar licks in it though.
Okay.
And he took samples off of something that quality-wise wasn't that great. So I'm recreating those, and I'm just watching his eyes dilate because of how good it's starting to sound compared to what he started with. So those moments are what I live for, pretty much, out in my professional life. But so hours can go by and I would never even pay attention to it. But the thing is, why I want to work less is not because I'm tired. I just want to do something else. I want to get on a movie. That's really what I want to do. I want to get back. I haven't done a movie in about 3-4 years now, so I want to get back to doing a movie sound, and that I'll have to cut out a lot to let that happen. So because once you're on one of those, you're on it for a while.
Oh yeah. You are listening to an Industries Insight podcast. We are broadcasting from the WFTU studios in Dix Hills, New York.
What is your favorite and least favorite part about being in this line of work?
I'll start with least favorite, drummers. I think it speaks for itself. I don't think I have to even explain that one. And that's not even true because I don't think I have. My least favorite part about it is I can't come up with one. Like even with me and my relationship with drummers through the years, and it's always been a negative thing. They're not really negative in a sense of they're good people, they're nice people and stuff like that. And I still speak to many of them and run into them all the time. But here's a negative. And this is going to sound bad. But this is really how I feel. Like I've spent pretty much my entire life doing this. And I've studied and learned and went to places and really paid my dues. And I don't need to win a Grammy. I'm not aspiring to do that. Obviously, if I did, I'd wear it as a necklace around this place. But I'm not. That's not my aspiration. My aspiration is to do things that I feel passionate enough about, and then have them come out almost that I like them better than the people that I'm recording. So that part of it is obviously the part that I like the best, I guess. When I do something that even if I'm not 100% satisfied with, they'll let me go that extra step. And I always say if it's not right, it's wrong. So like they'll let me make it right before we move forward. So I think that's the part I like the best. The least part though is I think it's software. And I'm like the king of software. Like, I have so much software at my house that I forget that I own it. Like I jokingly was looking Superior Drummer 3, not to drop ad names. I don't work for this company. But you think I do the way I talk about it. When that first came out, I bought it the second you could pre-order it. And then the holiday season, like right now, it's November, they always put things on sale. So I was looking for it to go on sale, forgetting that I owned it. And almost bought it a second time. Like I was like, because like I just keep buying software like a hoarder. But the idea of software, and again, I don't mean any disrespect to people who take advantage of it. Obviously, technology, embrace it. But it's given people the ability to do stuff that they technically don't have the ability to do. And I think that's the part for me that's weird.
Yeah.
Like, I always jokingly say I should have just hung out with my friends and, went crazy and stuff like that instead of learning all this stuff and just waited for Ableton to be invented. And then I could have just skipped all that hard work and I could have just had this. And it's not that there's not a creative side to it, but it's a great product, but I don't need to know how to play anything.
Yeah.
There's if you've looked at PreSonus' Studio One version 4, no, what's it called? I can't think of what PreSonus' company is called right now. They have something in it that you literally can have no musical talent whatsoever, and it'll tell you everything and convert things. So like Dino plays piano and sings. So let's say he played some piano chords and whatever key that was in, whether he knew that or not, irrelevant, because this product will figure it out for him. And then when he sings his vocal melody, if he's singing a note that is wrong, it will tell him this note really should be a half step lower. And so he doesn't even have to know how to sing. He just has to come close enough to it. And I think that's, I jokingly say technology versus, musicianship. That's a big thing. It's not that it's a negative. Again, none of this is really negative because I use all these products that we're talking about, to help people that can't do what they want to do to sound better. It's like we're about to release songs from the faculty and staff for a holiday record.
Oh, you're actually doing this?
Yeah. Yes. And if it wasn't for technology, it would be... It's going to be, again, I think it's going to be okay. But I wouldn't say anyone's going to be like, oh my God, this is groundbreaking holiday music you have here. But with technology, it's okay. Without the technology, I think we'd be like, maybe we shouldn't release this. So again, as I'm saying, that could be a negative. It's not really a big negative. I think that's it. I don't think I have a negative. I joking about negatives, but in reality, I would sit through it anyway.
Do you have any stories you want to tell us that's happened in the studios? It could be good, bad, favorite, least favorite.
Stories in the studio. My experience in the studio is why I have studio etiquette still to this day. And yeah, I mean, I could sit here for days and tell you stories upon stories of studio stuff that it would sound like I was making it up as I went, but I'm not, because some of it's just so insane. Some of it I couldn't even share over the air. I think some of it's very inappropriate, and I don't even mean that as I'm part of it. It's just what's happening. It's just you're standing there and you're just like, oh, okay, I guess
you just
this is
witness
happening.
it.
Yeah, this is happening right now, and you're just a witness to it. But I think I don't know. I don't even know there's so many I could pick from. I'm not even sure where to even start, which is usually weird because I usually got a story for everything.
Yeah.
But I think the stories that I think I like the best are the ones where people were in scenarios of studio etiquette situations that most people who don't work in a studio don't know exist. Like, you can't walk into a professional studio and blurt your opinion. That's just doesn't happen. And if you do, you're out. And these are places that, making $1 million records, and there's etiquette, and there's protocol, and there's, a hierarchy of who can and can't be there that kind of stuff. So like which room you're allowed to be in or which floor you're allowed to go to, because as an artist on that floor, you're not allowed to be part of. Like, so that kind of stuff I think is interesting, where most people, if they're recording at their house, their mom's not preventing them from going into the bathroom, because some artist is already in there using it or anything like that. But, and again, not that there's anything wrong with that either. Obviously, people are doing amazing sounding records in the privacy of their own home. So of course that's, a positive. But like hearing about studio stories, like like my one that I tell often is, people don't get that, like when you're like an intern or an assistant engineer or anything like that, like your job is to make the engineer look the best they can be. So like there was this one studio that I was working at where the engineer had literally erased something. It was gone. No, we're not getting it back. It's off the computer. It's gone. It was a complete accident, but he can't turn to the artist and sit and say to them, hey, remember that thing we worked on really hard last time that you paid a lot of money for? It's gone. And I lost it. So he had to fire his assistant engineer. And I watched it happen. I wasn't part of it. There was a studio that I was there just to help out, teach them how to use it. They were new to the location. And he leaned over to him and said, listen, I'm going to fire you in a couple minutes. Don't care about it. Don't care. And the kid's like, what? And he's like, I'm just going to fire you. Just let it happen. He's like, call me later. I'll explain it. And then he went into this rant about how could you possibly have lost this, and literally made him look like a jerk in front of people, like to the point that I was like, high eyebrows, open mouth, like, oh my God.
Taken back, yeah.
And I've seen people getting chewed out in the studio, but to watch this, and the kid was like, I guess I'm leaving, as he's getting yelled at. And I walked him to the stairs. It was on the second floor of this building. I walked him to the stairs going down to the ground floor, and he's like, what was that? And I'm like, I don't know. I guess you're going to find out later when you call. And him and we're still friends to this day, actually, because that was like a very funny moment for us, because the guy called as soon as the session was over. He's like, yes, I'm sorry I had to do that. He's like, this happened, and I can't lose face with my customer. They're paying me a lot of money, so you have to take it. You have to eat this one, right? So he then convinced the artist, because it was a couple people, and the A&R guy, to let that kid come back to the sessions. Like, he's like, I'll take care of it. I'll take care of you guys. And he saved them money for the rest of the day, so that was cool. They got to get a bunch of hours for free because that happened, but he didn't lose face in it, even though he completely did that. So it's like one of those things. It's, like that kind of stuff happens. Like you hear these crazy stories about like this person did that, they happen, and you just sort of roll with the punches.
Yeah.
It's not like a normal work environment. And I think that's the other thing too, is a lot of people don't recognize this as work. My family work, you know what I mean? They all work, and when they talk about me, they're like, oh, you're just sitting around listening to music all day. Like, that's true. I'm not putting hot tar on a hot summer roof or anything like that, but it's if you've done 18 hours in a row on something or multiple things, by the time 18 hours is done, you can't think straight. You've been so focused in a certain direction that your brain doesn't really operate the same way it would if you were just like hanging out, for 18 hours.
Have you worked on any projects that have been in the mainstream music world? Like,
yeah, stuff that you can go out and buy, like you can go purchase it if you wanted to.
Yeah, like stuff
Yeah.
you'd hear on the radio. And
I don't know about the radio in this country. I've worked on stuff that was like #1 hits or top 10 hits in other countries. So they were
Okay.
international artists. They were famous in this country in the sense of, I don't want to not drop names though. Is that all right?
That's fine.
Okay. They were famous in the sense of like if they went out with you, or if you were out with them, it's better. But put it like that, because I wasn't out with. They weren't out with me. I was out with them. They're being stopped repeatedly, like someone who's like has super fame, where there's like a legion of people that once one person recognizes them, the rest of them are there. So yeah, I've definitely done that. And I think the radio play is different now, because the radio is like top 40. So like top 40 is controlled. I mean, you guys know. I don't have to explain it. Top 40 is controlled quite a bit from a select few who even gets to win that lottery to be on.
Yeah.
You have to do something to get there. But the level of fame, I think, has to do with what happens when they go out. Like, what are they? When they play shows, are people showing up? Or are they playing bigger shows? Are they just playing for their friends and family? So yeah, I've gotten bands signed. They went on tour and had amazing experiences. And I actually, a couple of bands I've recorded, when the guitar players would get hurt or sick or something like that, I would jump on the tours with them, because
nice.
I watched them record their entire catalog, you know what I mean? So I know how their songs go out of anyone to jump on. So like through the years, I've done that like 4 or 5 times, and you know, watching them reap the benefits of the thing that we did is always a positive. But you know, so like for instance would be, I don't want to say the name, but they're world renowned, you know, and I got to work with them, and the coolest thing about it is, you know, I don't expect them to remember me. You know, I don't expect that. I figure this is a moment of their time that, you know, a couple of weeks go by and I'm a, you know, figment of their imagination if they can even remember that. But to run into them years later and then like, oh, hey, like I had that happen. I really want to say the person's name, but I don't want to say it. Because my first real session was with like an iconic artist that most people, especially from the island, would know. And like it was like I was in. You know, the moment that I had to like beg my mom. I was such a young kid. I had to beg my mom to let me stay there and stuff like that. So being at this studio that was gorgeous and had such great equipment, and then my band was signed to a record company. I'm going to try to leave that out also. But my band was signed to the record company. That producer engineer was assigned to us, you know, and I can't even go into how we got signed. It's just too long of a story, but it's unique. It's not like we won the lottery basically, and then the lottery went nowhere. It never paid out. But the thing is, the next session coming through the door, he saw my interest. He saw how interested I was. I can even tell you I can almost give you the date that this happened too if I looked it up, because something happened in the audio world that day that he showed me. And I was like, oh my God, that's crazy. And he's like, I know, check this out. And he was showing to me. And then he's like, what are you doing after the session? And our session ended around maybe like 9 or 10. And I'm like, I guess I'm going home. He's like, oh, because I have a really good session coming. And he didn't say who it was. He's like, see if you can stay a little bit longer. And I don't know how my parents let me stay, because I was in the middle of like, not the greatest neighborhood. And I'm a young kid. And but when I say I begged, I was like, I will do anything you want. Just let me stay here. And they did. And they knew my interest there already. They knew how interested I was. And my parents have been super supportive of anything I've ever done. So they let me stay, and in walks this iconic person. And I knew exactly who it was as soon as they came to the door. And I wasn't starstruck. I played it cool, you know what I mean? But to have them remember me, you know, many years later, like I think it was like 20 years later or something like that, from when I was that age to where I ran into them again. And they sat down, they're like, hey, I think I know you. And I was like, oh, you do? And then I said what it was. And they immediately we went right back to that day and all the crazy stuff that happened during that time period, you know. And he remembered, you know, the engineer and the scenario. So like that part of it for me was like, all right, cool. I left an impression on this person who's an iconic person that is like, you know, when it comes to the genre of music that this person's in, is like, you know, top notch.
You are listening to an Industries Inside podcast. We are broadcasting from the WFTU studios in Dix Hills, New York.
What advice would you give someone who wants to get into the audio field?
I would say like it's to find your niche. The thing is like to be able to record $1 million record, that's winning the lottery. And like you have to recognize that most people don't win the lottery. So at that point, find your niche. And I say this at open houses, and I say this at like, you know, presentations that I give outside of the building. And it's true. Anywhere there's sound, that could be an audio job. So it just you have to find your niche of where you want to be. If it's meant to be a hobby, then it's meant to be a hobby. That's fine. But if you're looking to work professionally, there's so many areas of audio that you can work in. Obviously here at the school, we've added more. We're trying to still continue to add more so that it gives students an opportunity to either learn about it or work with that environment, because that's where you find your niche. That's where am I going to be doing music? You know, doing music production is one way of doing it, but it doesn't have to be. You know, am I going to do live sound? Am I going to do video game audio? And we're trying to get that here. Myself and Professor Lee, we met a really good group of people that are local there in New York City. So maybe we can get them to come out and speak a little bit. Maybe we can develop a class off of that, you know, presentation, and maybe give our students an opportunity to intern at this location to get involved with video game audio. So like those are the kind of things that, and I think myself and other people around me at the time when I was younger than you guys doing all this, they said, don't ever, you know, settle on something. Don't just be like, this is the only thing I do. Like I jokingly say, you know, around here, country music sort of takes a hit when it comes to its popularity.
Yeah.
But if a group of country artists came to you and wanted to record, you shouldn't tell them that. So we jokingly say, we'll teach you how to lie and, stuff like that. But the reality is that is it. Because maybe country music isn't your thing, but you start recording a couple of those artists and they tell other artists and someone listens to that recording and said, hey, who recorded you? Your name gets passed on. And next thing you know, you're this huge engineer. You move to Nashville, you know what I mean? Like, those are the kind of things that just happen. You can't expect it to just be handed to you, though. So even finding your niche means like working towards something that you're going to be happy doing. And I think that, that's what I've done. I've watched other people do it. I've watched students who graduated here do it, even in recent times. They get themselves in a position where this is where I want to be and I really like what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
I just recently had a student, in the last 2 months send me a thank you text. I guess the best way to put it, because they came to me and asked for advice on something. And not that I made them do or anything like that, but they like, what do you think? And I'm like, I think you should go try it. Maybe you'll like it. And they did. And they built themselves up the rank, and they're completely in control of this environment that they're in, which is a really cool environment to be in. It's not just like they're doing music production; they're doing something on a national scale, and they're the audio part of the audio team, and they've moved themselves into being the head audio person in their area.
Mm-hmm.
So they love it. You know what I mean? They love it. They get to travel the country, at least the East Coast of the country, and they get to do audio. Why? That's what they came here for, so, they can lead into other things. Like, we've had a student that, again, I won't name drop, but this young student came in gung-ho, had, a little bit of a background before he got here, was definitely one of the funnier students in the sense of I know everything, and the interaction between myself and them is definitely unique. I'm sure some of you can appreciate what I'm talking about. But to watch them go on and succeed, and now they're working in an environment that we met at a summer workshop, and what we did in the summer workshop is now their job.
Mm-hmm.
And they get to use the facility for their own personal stuff plus their job. So it's like, to watch that happen, I think that's very gratifying for me. Not that I jokingly say, if you guys win a Grammy or an award, you have to thank me. But like, in reality, I don't need to thank you. It's more, if you just tell me about it, I'd be like, oh my God, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the stories I've heard, I was like, oh my God, can you take me with you?
Before we finish up, is there any new updates within the audio department going on right now?
Yes. For those who don't know this date, today is the 12th of November, 2018.
Mm-hmm.
It's approximately
5:50.
5:50.
Oh no, 4:50.
4:50 post-meridian. And we have just upgraded and received the API console for Studio Bass. So the ARM console will be slowly being removed. The disadvantage is the stand that it comes with is not shipped yet, so it comes from a separate company.
Okay.
Which is fine, because we still have to. We looked at all the connectors, and this is an easy switch over for us. Most of the connectors between the ARM and the API, because they use connectors, are the same, except for a handful. So like the switch over should be pretty quick.
Okay.
We were hoping it was going to be a month ago, but again, I could think everyone knows my motto is better late than never.
Yep.
So it works out here as well.
That's good.
So that's the end of the 5th episode of Season 2 of an Industries Inside podcast. Make sure to go follow us on Facebook and Instagram to get the updates. Also, don't forget to subscribe and like our YouTube page to listen to the podcast if you missed it. So until next time, I'm your host, Thomas Grabuznik,
And I'm Dino Ciccarelli.
and we'll talk to you guys later. Signing off.